Why should people support NCG? Better put, compassionism.
I think we're all aware of certain churches where we have to really raise our eyebrows as to the kind of money that's being raised and for what purposes. I mean, when they're building satellites and glass cathedrals and gold faucets and awesome air-conditioned dog houses and things like this, and when some of these televangelists live in $18 million homes and have private airstrips on their property, there is a certain decadence that is going on, and regardless of what you might think of some of the theology that's going on in many churches, of which I would find myself highly objectionable, the vast majority of churches are really bringing in money that is meeting their particular budgetary needs based upon the things they're attempting to accomplish. And they're not being particularly decadent or even overpaying their ministers. In fact, probably not paying their ministers anywhere near enough. That's the story for the vast majority of churches. There are a few bad exceptions. However, there's also the other element, not just the decadence, but there's the element of, the manipulation in giving. God will bless you, or the promise that somehow your giving is planting a seed. I don't believe in any of that crap. I really don't. However, the truth is, getting certain things done takes money. It requires resources. These resources cost money. If you want these things to happen, they can't happen without there being some sort of a financial backing to them. And it's just a fact of life. And indeed, I think it's more a fact of life today than it ever was, because today we live under a monetary system. I can't raise vegetables in the backyard and then go down to Time Warner and say, you can have these vegetables and give me internet access. That's not going to happen. They want money, for the internet access. When I use the cameras that I use, when I use the various things that we do just to reach out, cost a certain amount of money. Well, you know what? Our just reaching out, in a sense, that's just spinning our wheels. That's not really getting much done. The truth is, if we're going to get other things done, if we're going to get people involved in action, if we're going to get people involved in being different kinds of people, involved in compassionate efforts, this is going to require even more money than just having the assets that allow us to broadcast. So when it comes down to it, it's just a fact of life. I guarantee you, if somebody gives $20 to NCG, that will be $20 that we have and that they don't. And I can't promise you that there's going to be anything other coming of it than that, So there's no promises. But if we're doing something that people would like to see being done, in order to continue doing it, that's what it takes. So I think people, if they really like what we're doing, if they really want to see this becoming a movement, if they would like to see more people getting on board, if they'd like to see more activities being encouraged, well, sorry, there's no way to get that done except by making sure that it is somehow properly financed.
Bob, I've got a question for you. Do you think that there is any series of words that you could say to another person, any person, that by the hearing of it, they would lose the ability to understand language?
Yes. God loves you. Or Joey loves you. You did it. Oh, yeah.
Why is your passion so directed at what we're doing here at NCG?
The first reason is that I like discussion. Like all people, I have this innate sense that I'm right, that I think clearly, that I've got proper causes for thinking the way that I do. But I also know better. I understand that that's just a feeling. That's just the way it seems to me. And I have discovered through ongoing discussions with different people who see things differently that I have been able to shift my own paradigm, to be able to see things in a new way. And I find that that always enlarges me. I become a better person for it. And so NCG, in attempting to have all of these discussions, whether or not people are completely persuaded, the truth is, you can become a better whatever you are by truly having a better understanding of the people who don't agree with you and why it is they don't. It can help make what you do even better in doing it than it used to be, because all of us have a blind side. And even if we're doing something worth doing that other people disagree with, it can always be done better, and you'll never figure out what that is unless there's a discussion going on where people who don't like what you're doing have a chance to speak up. So I like the fact that NCG is involved in discussion. The other thing that I really like about what NCG is doing is we're trying to shift the discussion to a slightly different focus, which is totally important. The previous focus that we have had has gotten us nowhere. Well, let me take that back. Where has it gotten us? It's gotten us to a lot of places we thought we wanted to go. I say some brilliant things in defense of my theism, and I can sleep at night. And I have done such a brilliant job of this, and I'm such a champion for my point of view, you know. And then other people come on and they have to say what they have to say, and their choir is singing their song, and they've done such a great job, and their fans love it. And so we can all go home at night and feel so good about ourselves and feel like, yeah, we did one for the cause, you know. But we're still polarized. We're not us. We're us and them. We're still not talking about what's right or wrong in a way that is productive, that leads us or brings us anywhere. We need to be able to talk about this and that without necessarily having our ego so invested in this or that we can't be perhaps sometimes even less certain. So I like the fact that NCG is trying to change the focus so that we're discussing these things in a way where it can move forward and where we don't have to be so deeply invested in one of those points of view, but we're open to growing and open to being sometimes uncertain, open sometimes to saying, I don't know. And the reason I don't know isn't because I don't know anything. It's because I know so much that this is not entirely reconcilable. And so I find myself in conundrum. There will be ways in which we need to do that. And that is the way that a person who has a certain degree of intelligence, but also recognizing their limits, will deal with. And that's something that NCG is trying to do. I don't know how well we're succeeding at that, but that is definitely what we're trying to do. I like that. Being a college professor and a teacher, there's just something about enlarging our vision, enlarging our point of view, enlarging what we're aware of, and finding new ways of talking about things that seems to work so well. So that's what we're trying to do. I like that. I want to continue doing that.
Perhaps you might be inspired by a few podcasts. We are getting ready to do some podcasts, yes, on a daily basis, yes, and it will be soon. So if you're interested, let us know. Bob, what are your thoughts on podcasting daily?
I think a daily podcast would be a good idea. And as you said, brief, 15 minutes a day, because one of the things I've discovered about myself is that when I learn something, I learn it and then I forget it. And then I learn it again and then I forget it, but not as much. And then I learn it again and a little bit more of it sticks with me. Not only that, but I find that when I learn something new, if I just leave it at that, give me a little bit of time and I turn what's new into just what was old. I turn it back into what it used to be, and it just looks new. It uses the language of new, but it's still the old thinking of old. And this is a serious problem. So by having a daily podcast and discussing something and trying to push certain ideas forward, it helps to ingrain and maintain a way of, as we're headed back to the old way of thinking, this helps cut us off at the pass, And one of the things that, if I might even add this, is that I see this as being one of the most serious problems of Christianity. As I understand Jesus, he came and he radically confronted the status quo, radically confronted religion, radically confronted the way it was abusive. But by the time the Gospels are written, which is at least 40 years, and with some of them probably much later, and who knows how long it took until they were in what appears to be a final form. Their scholars differ on that. Some think it was rather quick. Some think it may have taken a couple of centuries. But whatever, by the time it gets into its written form, I think a great deal of what Jesus opposed was built right back into it, so that Christianity has become, in essence, in various ways and on too many axes, the very thing Jesus was opposing, And so that's sad. And so it's unfortunate that Jesus couldn't have a daily podcast and couldn't be around. But we can. We're here now. We want to move forward. We want to use what it is the human race seems to have access to as knowledge today. And we're hoping that Theism 2.0 can move forward and truly find a foothold that builds, and it takes time to set a whole new paradigm of approach.